Hi, class. Welcome to Political Science Research Methods. I apologize for not being able to be with you the first couple days of the class, and I really appreciate the kind comments that some of you sent my way, and I appreciate all of your understanding during a time that's been pretty difficult for my family. So today I wanted to go over the basics of the course as well as the reason why I think studying political science research methods is important and something that's worth value. Okay. First of all, I'll just introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. My name is Dr. Michael Artime. This is my, let's see, my third year at PLU now. Yeah, so have been here for a little while, and my wife also started teaching at the same time that I did here at PLU. Her name is Dr. Tiffany Artime, and you can see her in the picture here with our daughter Louise, who is about 11 months old in a couple days. And you can see her in the other picture with my dog Warner, who is a big Labradoodle, and she likes to stand on him, rest on him, stick her hand in his mouth and pull on his teeth and his tongue. So we have been really enjoying our time together as a family over the summer. I'm also anxious to get to know you as well. And I'll talk about this at the end here, but I'm also going to send you information about a Google Hangout tomorrow afternoon between 3 and 4 o'clock. And I'm going to ask that each of you um, take a moment during that time period to share a little bit about yourself. And you can use that opportunity to ask me any questions that you have about the course. And I'll be there in real time and able to respond to you. So let me talk about some of the topics that we'll be covering here in the course. We're going to be talking about the basics of research, the sort of building blocks of doing research in political science. Then we'll turn to actually engaging in research. In particular, we'll spend a lot of time learning different types of statistical analysis. So in this second part of the course, we'll be looking at some basic techniques in statistical analysis. That portion of the course will culminate in a project that I'll explain in more detail later on in the course. This is going to be a project which you can complete independently or you can complete as part of a small group. Then, once that project is completed and you've presented that to the class, we'll have a sort of crash course in advanced statistical techniques, and that will also culminate in a project, and that'll be the second project in the course, and then the final assignment that you'll have to complete before the end of the semester. Okay, so one of the big questions is, about the discipline. So we call ourselves political science, but we don't often think about whether or not what we do is truly scientific or not. And the argument, at least for people inside the discipline, is yes, we are a type of science. We're a type of science because the same way that the life sciences, the natural sciences, make use of the scientific method. We also make use of the scientific method in our discipline. And so I'll talk to you in class. We'll have some time here at the beginning of the course where I talk about why what we do is scientific. And so there's some big questions in terms of um, what is the state of research in the discipline. And so we tend to, at least in American politics, rely a lot on quantitative analysis. So sort of crunching the numbers as it relates to different political trends in the United States. Well, one of the questions is, does that make the discipline inaccessible to outsiders? Does it mean that people who might otherwise be interested in some of the things that we have to say can't understand what it is that we find. Also, if we choose to abandon quantitative analysis and we use more qualitative approaches, is that somehow less rigorous? And I would argue that it's not, and we'll talk about that in class. Finally, do we shy away from big questions when we look at statistical analysis? And that is something that I'll touch on as we go throughout the course, because most research papers are dealing with a very narrow question as it relates to politics in the United States. You're not trying to answer, does democracy work or not, in the types of research that you do in a quantitative way. And one of the things that we'll learn in this course is that asking those small questions helps us bit by bit, piece by piece, understand some of these bigger questions. So I wanted to give you an example of a type of political science that I think has been important, demonstrating hopefully that there's value in what we do. So one of the questions that's been asked for a long period of time is, what is political ideology and why is it important? One of the key figures in analyzing that within our discipline is Philip Converse. Philip Converse made the argument that political elites, those who are knowledgeable and engaged in politics, are more likely to organize their world in an ideological sense. So they're more likely to understand politics in terms of a liberal and conservative spectrum. He used the American National Election Studies dataset, a dataset which we'll be using in this course and which has been used since the 1950s in the discipline. And so his initial research was done using the 1956, 1958, and 1960 panel studies that were done by the American National Election Studies dataset. This dataset asks a series of open-ended questions about parties and candidates in American politics. And what he found was that essentially people could be divided into 5 categories. There were ideologues, which were the people that were most knowledgeable about politics. They understood what the terms liberal and conservative meant, and they could organize issues and ideas along that spectrum. There are near ideologues, which are sort of second best, according to Converse. They know the terms liberal and conservative, but they don't always apply them accurately. There are group interest, or people that would be defined as interested in the outcomes of their own group. And so, for example, if you're a teacher, what you might be most concerned with is how politicians address issues which are directly related to your field. So, where do politicians stand on questions of teacher unions, for example, might be of particular concern to you. And if that's the case, and you organize your thinking about politics in that way, then you would be part of this category. There are also nature of the times individuals. These are people that evaluate politics based on what is currently happening and not necessarily long-term trends. And his argument is the worst of all is this no issue content voter. These are the people that he argues essentially don't know anything about politics and don't care about the political world. As you can see, according to Converse's analysis, most people, at least the plurality of people, can be situated in this group interest category. Some scholars revisited this analysis in 2000, and what they found was a pretty striking results, in many ways very similar to what Converse had found in the past. However, what you notice is that there are both more people who are in the ideologue category, so more people who know about politics and can organize political thinking on an ideological spectrum than existed in 1956. But there are also more people in the no issue content category, and so This is consistent with other findings in political science, which demonstrate that there's a growing gap between those who know about politics and those that don't. That if you want to know about politics, you can know everything there is to know about it, especially considering our access to lots of information via technology. But if you don't want to know about politics, there are a lot of other things that you can consume your time with. And so his conclusions are the public does not necessarily think about political parties and candidates ideologically. It's the large minority don't think about politics on those terms. Also, the recognition and correct use of the terms liberal and conservative is actually quite rare. That constraint across a variety of issue positions is rather low, meaning that you would think that people would have pretty consistent, but so if you were against, if you didn't believe that the government had as large a role in policy making as it should, then that should dictate how you think about a variety of issues. What he found was that wasn't true. People were sort of all over the map in terms of their issue positions. Additionally, attitude consistency over time is low, so you could ask somebody their opinion about an issue one day, and if you ask them a period of time later, they might give you a very different answer. So ultimately, it's a fairly pessimistic look at how people think about politics. And so I'd encourage you to think about, how you would describe the American voter. How do you know that you're correct, and to what degree are you certain of your assessment? Political science is helping us answer some of these questions. Without political science, we only address these issues in very anecdotal ways, and I would argue that that's not a very effective way of addressing these big picture questions as they relate to American politics. Additionally, Converse was part of a team of researchers who helped us understand how people arrived at their political beliefs in general. So he argued, as well as some other scholars that he worked with, that there was a funnel of causality, essentially, a process by which we arrive at our political beliefs. This is a very complicated look at the funnel of causality. Here's a much simpler one that I created. It's called the Sharknado of causality. So essentially, we start identifying our political beliefs when we are young. We often get those political beliefs from our parents or those around us. Over time, we develop a psychological attachment to the party. And that psychological attachment to the party influences the way that we evaluate candidates, issues, foreign and domestic policy, and as a consequence, that dictates our vote choice. Okay. What you can see through this is that because our political beliefs are so influenced by those around us and by our own psychological attachment to the party, it's very difficult for party affiliation or ideological beliefs to be swayed, for them to change. So I wanted to give you a brief description of a type of research to demonstrate to you that political science has a lot to say about some of these issues, not just in terms of how we decide who to vote for and who not to vote for, but also in terms of the way that the institutions of government operate. And so it's important that we do this work well. And I hope that we can kind of find ways to do that during this semester, and that over time you begin to feel comfortable engaging in that type of analysis, which really empowers us as we learn more about how American politics works. As I mentioned, I'm going to be sending you some information via email about the Google Hangout. You should go there, you should introduce yourself, and you should make sure to ask me any questions that you have. I'll be returning on Wednesday, so we'll have class as normal then. Don't worry, I'll make sure that we catch up on all the content that we've missed in the last few days. Again, I really appreciate both your support and your understanding during this time. Have a great day.